Thank you all for tuning into Big Mama Storytime. Storytime! Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment to my page. Here we go. Hi guys, thank you all for tuning in to Big Mama Storytime. Today I will be reading to you Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Illustrated Classic Edition. This is a bigger book, y'all. Way more words than I am used to reading to you all. So, that being said, it will be done in increments, sections. Okay, so this is Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, adapted by the from the film and by Gina and Gogli, I guess. Illustrated by Robin Cuddy. Okay. Alright, let's get into this. As the sun rose over Paris, it warmed the cobblestone streets and the river that flows through the city. It shone on gabled rooftops and the spires of the towering cathedral. By mid-morning, the slanting rays brightened the chilly bell tower. There, the faithful bell ringer was at work. As he tugged the thick ropes, the huge bells rang out, sounding the hour. They were the bells of the great cathedral of Notre Dame. Below in the town square, children gathered to watch a puppet show. Listen to them, little ones, said the puppeteer. The bells, they are beautiful, no? But do you know who is ringing them? Do you know that high in the tower of Notre Dame lives a mysterious bell ringer? The puppeteer removed his feathered hat with a sweeping bow. I, Clopin, the leader of the gypsies, he announced, will tell you a tale about this man. And I can tell you it is true because I have witnessed much of it with my eyes and heard of it with my own ears. He drew in a deep breath and began his story. It is a tale of a man and a monster. Listen carefully, my children, Clopin told them. Then maybe you can tell me, who is the man and who is the monster? One winter's night, the city lay dusted in fresh snow. While the citizens slept, a small boat glided down the river past the cathedral. A group of weary travelers huddled aboard and peered anxiously into the dark. As the boat docked beside an ice-coated pier, the only sounds were the splashing of oars and a baby's whimper. Keep the child still, a nervous passenger warned. You know we gypsies are not welcome here in Paris. The infant's mother gently hugged her son. Hush, little one, she whispered, but the mother's words came too late. Armed soldiers sprang through the shadows and surrounded the gypsies as they stepped ashore. A black stallion, its breath frosting in the moonlight, stood silently nearby. One of the gypsies gasped. He recognized the horse's rider, Judge Claude Frollo. He gulped. He knew this man. The minister of justice had a reputation for cruelty. Take the gypsies to the palace of justice, Frollo ordered. One soldier noticed the bundled baby. You there? He cried, stopping the child's mother. What are you hiding? Stolen goods? No doubt, said Frollo. Seize them. The soldier grabbed for the blanket, holding her precious baby tightly in her arms. The woman fled into the night. Frollo spurred his horse and began to pursue her. With the sound of the stallion's pounding hoofbeats ringing in her ears, the terrified woman tried desperately to run across the slippery streets, slick with ice. If I can just reach the cathedral, she thought, my baby and I will be safe. Once inside, we will be granted sanctuary, the sacred protection of the church. At the end of an alley, a narrow gate blocked her way. The woman frantically fumbled with the latch, and as Frollo rolled hard toward her, she squeezed through. Furious, Frollo directed his horse to a wider passage. The woman scrambled up the wide stone steps of Notre Dame and pounded on the heavy arched doors. Sanctuary, she cried. Please give us sanctuary. Frollo, spurring his galloping stallion, thundered up behind her. He leaned down and tugged at the tightly clutched bundle. Knocked off balance, the gypsy woman lost her footing and hit her head against a step. Frollo coldly viewed her still body and knew she would never rise again. Suddenly the baby began to wail. An infant? Frollo uttered in surprise. He peered inside the blanket. He could see a glance that the child was deformed, a monster. The minister of justice declared. Frollo guided his horse toward a stone well at the edge of the courtyard. His eyes gleamed as he dangled the wiggling bundle above the dark opening. I will send this unholy demon back to hell, he began. Stop! Demanded a voice. Frollo spun around. A robed man wearing a priest's cowl looked up at him angry. Archdeacon, gasped the minister of justice, you have killed an innocent creature of God and spilled blood on the steps of Notre Dame, said the churchman. She ran. I merely pursued her, declared Frollo. The archdeacon shook his head. It is because she is dead, he said, and now you will kill her unfortunate infant too? My conscience is clear, insisted Frollo. You have sinned, declared the archdeacon. If you wish to... Hold on. If you wish to save your soul, you must atone for your wickedness by caring for this child as you would your own. Frollo's face flushed with rage, but he also feared for his immortal soul. The archdeacon pointed to the statues of saints, gazing sternly from the heights of the cathedral. Frollo stared up at the statue of Notre Dame, Our Lady, protecting her own infant in her arms. The minister of justice weighed the consequences of his decision. Actually, he thought, if I keep the child locked up in the tower, the situation just might be tolerable. One day, the child could even prove useful to me. Very well, Archdeacon, he said, forcing a thin smile. I'll provide for the child and teach him what he needs to know, but let him live here with you within the cathedral. Very well, the archdeacon agreed. Frollo glared at the frightened baby. It is almost ironic, he thought to himself. This homely child will be kept in the bell tower with only the gargoyles for companions. Now those hideous stone creatures will have a rival in ugliness. And because Frollo thought the child was more monster than human, he named it Quasimodo, the half-formed one. Years passed, and Quasimodo lived alone in the drafty bell tower. Now and then townspeople caught glimpses of his homely face and misshapen back. He became known as the Hunchback of Notre Dame. By the time he was 20, Quasimodo was stronger than most men. With the ease of an acrobat, he swung on the thick ropes and rang the bells, announcing the hours of night and day. One morning, he spoke to a baby bird, its nest stuffed inside a gargoyle's mouth. The tiny creature hopped out, flapped its wings timidly, and looked at Quasimodo. Go on, Quasimodo encouraged the little bird. Nobody wants to be cooped up in here forever. Why, if I pick the day to fly, this would be it. The Festival of Fools. It will be fun down there in the square. You'll see jugglers and dancing and eat wonderful food. The bird began to flap its wings a little more enthusiastically until suddenly it took off. As soon as it had flown away, the gargoyle came to life. I thought that little guy'd never leave, he said as he coughed and spit the bird's nest out of his mouth. I'll be spitting out feathers for a week. Several feet away, another gargoyle spoke up. That's what you get for sleeping with your mouth open, Hugo, he said primly. He stretched and extended his wings. Ah, Victor, go scare none, Hugo replied. The gargoyles leaned over the rail and watched the nosy crowds. This is a great spot, said Hugo. Balcony seats. It is such a treat to watch the colorful pageantry of the simple peasant folk, Victor observed. Although it is such a peculiar holiday, imagine dressing up as foolishly as possible, and then to climax the event, the most foolish looking of all is crowned the king of the festival. Don't be so stuffy, Victor, said Hugo. Listen, the band's turning up. He leaned over the rail. Quick, Quasi, the tightrope. The tightrope walker's putting up his rope. He glanced around. Quasi! Hey, where you going? Don't you want to watch the festival with us? Asked Victor. Are you sick? Impossible, cackled an elderly gargoyle as she shuffled toward them. If 20 years of listening to you two hasn't made him sick, nothing will. But Laverne, Victor told her, watching the Festival of Fools has always been the highlight of the year for Quasimodo. He's right, said Hugo. Let's go find out what's the matter. They found Quasimodo at a table gazing at a miniature wooden town. He'd carved it himself. It was a city he knew only from above. What's wrong, Quasi? Asked Laverne. Want to tell Laverne all about it? I just don't feel like watching the festival, that's all, said Quasimodo. Laverne scratched her chin for a moment. Did you ever think of going there instead? She asked. A good idea, agreed Laverne. As your friends and guardians, we insist that you attend the festival. Yeah, said Hugo. Quit beating around the bell tower. But I've never fit it in out there. I'm not normal, said Quasimodo sadly. Quasi, Laverne said gently. Take it from an old spectator. Sorry y'all. Hold on. An old spectator. Life's not a spectator sport. If watching is all you're going to do, then you're going to watch your life to go by without you. I appreciate all the encouragement, interrupted Quasimodo, but you're forgetting one big thing. My master, Frollo. Oh, said Laverne. I did forget for a minute. Tell me, said Victor. When Frollo says you're forbidden to ever leave the bell tower, does he mean ever? He means never ever, said Quasimodo, and he hates the Festival of Fools. He'd be furious if I even asked to go. Well then, said Hugo, wiggling his eyebrows, who says you gotta ask? It's just one afternoon, urged Laverne. Sure, said Hugo. You sneak out and sneak back in. But he might see me, said Quasimodo. You would wear a disguise, suggested Victor. Remember what you told that little girl, that little bird? Laverne reminded him. Nobody wants to stay cooped up here forever. Quasimodo thought it over for a moment. You're right, he declared. I'll go. That's the stuff. yelled Hugo. Victor patted Quasimodo on the back. You'll see, he said. This decision is one you'll not regret. Beaming from ear to ear, Laverne opened the door wide. Then all at once she froze. Frollo himself was coming up the stairs. Oh, good, good, good morning, master, stuttered Quasimodo fearfully. Dear boy, whoever are you talking to? Asked Frollo. Quasimodo hesitated a bit. My friends, he answered. I see, said Frollo, knocking his hand against Laverne's suddenly still forehead. And what are your friends made of? Stone, answered Quasimodo. Can stone talk? Asked Frollo. No, master, answered Quasimodo. Smart lad, said Frollo. Well then, let's sit down. First, we shall review your alphabet. A is for abomination, recited Quasimodo. Frollo nodded. B is for blasphemy, Quasimodo responded. C is for contribution. D is for damnation. E is for external damnation. F is for festival. Excuse me? Interrupted Frollo. I mean, F for forgiveness. You said festival, roared Frollo. You are thinking about going to the festival of fools? It's just that you get to go every year and, stammered Quasimodo. I'm a public official, Frollo interrupted. I must go, but I don't enjoy it. Thieves and cut purses, the dregs of humankind, all mixed together in a shallow, drunken stupor. He shook his head. He shook his head with mock sadness. When your heartless mother abandoned you, no one but I took you in. Is this the thanks you give me for rearing you as a son? You've been good to me, master, said Quasimodo miserably. I didn't mean to upset you. You are forgiven, said Frollo, pausing at the door. He patted Quasimodo on the shoulder. You don't know what it's like out there. I do. The world is a cruel place. You would be hated and scorned. Only this place can be a sanctuary to you, such as you. Sanctuary to one such as you. And with that, Frollo swept from the room. Alone, Quasimodo went back to his miniature town. He took a tiny carved model from inside of the little bell tower. It was of himself. He placed it in the middle of the town square. All my life, he said softly, I've wanted to be there, if only for a day. Quasimodo went out onto the balcony and lonely watched the happy crowds below. If I were down there, he thought, I'd love every minute, going where I wish, stopping where I might. He raised his head to heaven and closed his eyes. Oh, if I could have but one day of freedom and hold forever in my heart, he murmured. In a few moments, Quasimodo opened his eyes. Then, with a new determined air, he went back to his room and threw on his cloak. He would be going to the festival, after all. I know that's right, Quasi. Do your thing. You older. A man led his horse through the joyously crowded festival streets. His name was Phoebus. I'm going to say Phoebus. Hidden beneath his cloak, he wore the golden armor of a captain in the royal army. Puzzled, he stopped to check his rumpled map. It should be around here somewhere. Achilles? Phoebus muttered to his horse. Perhaps we took a wrong turn. Achilles whined and sidestepped around a man playing a flute. Prancing close behind was a white goat with a gold ring in his ear. A delighted crowd pitched coins onto the street as the animal danced and a young gypsy woman waved a tambourine. Phoebus stopped to watch and tossed a few coins. The gypsy woman looked up at him and smiled. Phoebus smiled back. He'd never seen such a beautiful woman. All of a sudden, a young gypsy boy on the edge of the crowd whistled a shrill warning. "Esmeralda!" he cried to the gypsy woman. "The money!" Esmeralda fell to her knees, scooping the stray coins into a hat. As she found the last one, two soldiers pushed their way through the crowd. The shorter of the two wore a lieutenant's stripe. The other was a sergeant with a bushy mustache. They yanked Esmeralda to her feet. "All right, where did you get the money?" demanded the lieutenant. He snatched the hat from her grasp. "I earned it," protested Esmeralda. "Give it back!" He held the hat above her head. "Gypsies don't earn money, they steal it," his comrade proclaimed. Esmeralda reached up for the hat. The lieutenant raised it higher. She kicked him hard in the shin, and he yelled with pain. The sergeant grabbed Esmeralda by the wrist. "Maybe a few days in prison will cool you down," he said. "Dally!" shouted Esmeralda, springing into action. The little goat scrambled through everybody's legs and butted the soldier. As the man lost his balance, Esmeralda broke free. She and Dally darted past Phoebus. Phoebus raised his eyebrows. "Very impressive," he thought. "Very impressive indeed." The furious soldiers charged forward. Phoebus pulled hard on Achilles' reins and blocked their way. Achilles, sit, he spoke. At once the obedient animal sat down on the sergeant. "Hey, get this thing off me," he cried out. "Oh my, I am sorry," said Phoebus with mock concerns. "This horse is impossible. He can't be taken anywhere." Esmeralda, watching from a safe distance, grinned. Then she and Dally vanished into the crowd. The lieutenant drew a dagger. "I'll teach you a lesson, peasant," as Phoebus flung back his cloak to unsheath his sword. His armor was revealed. Recognizing Phoebus' rank, the soldier snapped to attention. "At your service, Captain," he stammered. Phoebus pulled up on the reins. As Achilles lurched up and stood, the sergeant scrambled out from underneath. Glaring, he jumped to his feet and reluctantly saluted. "And now, you two," Phoebus said, "I wish to be escorted to the Palace of Justice." The immense Palace of Justice faced an open square packed with festival goers. Phoebus stepped from the sunny day into the building's gloomy halls. "I am looking for Judge Frollo," he told an approaching guard. "Down in the dungeon," the guard answered, gesturing to a stairwell. "He's overseeing the punishment of a prisoner." Phoebus found his way down the winding stone steps. Torchlight flickered on the damp walls, and fat water bugs scurried past his feet. Every now and then, the crack of a whip cut the dark silence. The lashes sounded closer as he descended the stairs. Wow. Frollo, standing at the open cell door near the foot of the steps, greeted Phoebus. "Ah, so you are the gallant Captain Phoebus, home from the wars," he said. "Reporting for duty as ordered, sir," answered Phoebus. "I'm looking forward to working under your command. Your record as a war hero precedes you," said Frollo. "I have no doubt that you will be a vast improvement over the man who formerly served under me." He added, gesturing toward the cell. "He proved most unsatisfactory. A hooded man, coiling a long leather whip, stepped out of the cell and retreated down the hall. I am finished with my work here for the moment, said Frollo. Come, I wish to show you something from up on the colonnade. Phoebus followed Frollo back up the steps and onto a wide balcony lined with columns. Tell me what you see, said Frollo, pointing to the noisy festival crowd below. Phoebus leaned against the colonnade railing and gazed across the sunny square. People just having a good time, he asked. Misled, confused people, Frollo corrected him. You've come to Paris in her darkest hour, Captain. It will take a firm hand such as yours to save our many weak-minded citizens. From what? Asked Phoebus. From the gypsies, Frollo told him. Phoebus was surprised. Gypsies? What have they done? They are a bad influence on our people, Frollo explained. They do whatever they please, go wherever they like. His eyes narrowed and his voice grew harsh. For 20 years I have fought to keep them under control, and yet for all my success they have thrived. Frollo then noticed a line of tiny ants along the stone railing. They marched past his hand and disappeared beneath the crack. He lifted the loose piece of railing. Hundreds of disturbed insects swarmed out from their hidden nests. Looking at the ants, he continued, I believe they have a safe haven within the very walls of the city. A nest, if you will. He sneered. They refer to it as the Court of Miracles. What are we going to do about it, sir? Asked Phoebus. Frollo smashed the brick down, crushing the ants in their nests. I see, said Phoebus. You've made yourself clear. Frollo smiled. Now let's go see what those peasants are up to. They was up to dancing and partying, and look at all this. They just happy and having fun. Straddling a parapet high above the street, Quasimodo glanced up at the bell tower. Hugo, Victor, and Laverne waved down to him. You're doing great, called Hugo. Quasimodo grabbed onto a festival banner rope and continued to rappel the steep wall. Then, at last, when he'd almost made it to the foot of the cathedral, the rope snapped. Hoof! He grunted as he landed, unhurt amid a throng of masked festival goers. Merely, they helped him to his feet and scampered along their way. Quasimodo dusted himself off and looked around. The mob streets were a little scary. Taking a deep breath, he joined the jostling crowd. Enticing aromas hung in the air and the sounds of horns and drums vibrated in his head. People were dressed in an amazing array of funny topsy-turvy costumes. A man in a dog outfit strolled by, walking a man on a leash. Then two people dressed as a horse with a tail at both ends bumped into him. Regaining his balance, Quasimodo was almost knocked over again by a man on stilts. Confused, he stumbled into a dressing tent next to a wooden stage and bumped against the table, knocking everything on it to the ground. Are you all right? She asked. I'm sorry, said Quasimodo. I didn't mean to. Esmeralda helped him to his feet. No harm done, she said. She showed him the way out of the tent. Why don't you stay and watch the show? Thank you, stammered Quasimodo. That would be very nice. By the way, said Esmeralda, grinning at him, great mask. At once, Quasimodo turned away and hid his face in his hood. Then, hesitantly, he took a place close to the stage. Come one, come all, see the lovely Esmeralda dance. A man shouted to the crowd, "I, Clopin, the leader of the gypsies, welcome you." He threw some powder into the air and it exploded into a puff of colored smoke. When the air cleared, Esmeralda stood poised before the cheering crowd. As she began to dance and play her tambourine, Quasimodo's heart thumped wildly. He could never have imagined him anything so beautiful. Seated on a low reviewing stand and frowning, Frollo watched Esmeralda dance. She glided over to him and teasingly wrapped her filmy scarf around his neck and tipped his hat forward. Frollo pulled away, but he could see that Phoebus was clearly enchanted by her. As she returned to the stage to finish her dance, Esmeralda winked at Quasimodo. Half hidden in his hood, he blushed and lowered his eyes. Clopin stepped forward and raised his hands to quiet the applauding crowd. "And now, the moment you've all been waiting for," he announced. "It's time to crown the king of this year's Festival of Fools. Because our festival's a time when everything's topsy-turvy, the king of fools must be the ugliest man in town. Contestants, take your places." Clopin called out to the crowd. "As Esmeralda removes the mask, vote with your applause for the most frightening and horrible." Esmeralda went straight over to Quasimodo. "Come on," she whispered. "You're sure to win." No, he pleaded. "Please." Esmeralda pulled him by the hand. As he stepped up to the stage, Quasimodo's cloak slipped from his back. The contestants climbed up and stood next to him. A man wearing a fish head paraded past. Others sported heads of serpents, sharp-beaked birds, and sea monsters. One contestant wore the face of a gargoyle. Esmeralda began to remove the mask. The crowd cheered or booed for each of them. "Now here's a really ugly mask," Clopin said when Esmeralda reached Quasimodo. "Esmeralda, take off this man's mask so we can see who he is." Esmeralda gently tugged at Quasimodo's face. "Oh," she exclaimed, realizing it wasn't a mask. Quasimodo frantically looked for an escape, but the stage whirled before his eyes and he felt faint. "It's Quasimodo!" Somebody cried. "It's the bell ringer from the cathedral!" Wow. Ashamed and afraid, Quasimodo buried his face in his hands. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced Clopin, "we asked for the ugliest face in all of Paris, and here he is. Quasimodo, the Hunchback of Notre Dame." "Quasimodo! Quasimodo!" roared the crowd. They rushed forward and Clopin crowded him with a floppy jester's cap. That is so embarrassing. Lifting him high on their shoulders, they paraded out into the street. Quasimodo felt an unexpected surge of happiness. Frollo had been wrong. The people didn't hate him. He was going to be their king. The lieutenant who chased Esmeralda that morning yelled to the crowd, "You think he's ugly now? Watch this." Taking aim, he threw a tomato at Quasimodo. The juicy fruit hit Quasimodo square on the head. Others joined in and pelting him with fruit. "Gifts from your loyal subjects," the lieutenant jeered. "Stop it!" shouted Esmeralda, but her voice was lost in the din. Then someone threw a rope around Quasimodo and tied him to a pillar wheel. Laughing, the crowd threw more fruit at him, straining at the ropes. Quasimodo looked about wildly for help. He spotted Frollo and a tall soldier watching nearby. "Master!" he cried out. "Master, please help me!" Frollo sat still. "Sir," Phoebus said, "I request permission to stop this cruelty." He put his hand on his sword hilt. "In a moment," replied Frollo. "A lesson needs to be learned here." Esmeralda made her way toward the pillory. Quasimodo, frightened and embarrassed, leaned away from her. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. She began to wipe off Quasimodo's face with her scarf. The crowd suddenly grew quiet and watched. "Stop that at once!" Frollo ordered Esmeralda. "At once!" "Yes, Your Honor," answered Esmeralda. "Just as soon as I free this poor creature." Frollo was enraged. "I forbid it!" Esmeralda cut Quasimodo's rope. "How dare you defy me?" Frollo roared. "You mistreat this poor boy the same way you mistreat my people?" Esmeralda protested. "You're the minister of justice, but cruelest to those who need your help the most." "Silence!" Frollo shouted. "Justice!" Esmeralda shouted back. The crowd gasped, astonished to her boldness. "Mark my words," said Frollo. "Through clenched teeth, you will pay for this insolence." "Then it appears," Esmeralda told him, removing Quasimodo's crown, "that we crowned the wrong fool. The only fool I see is you." She tossed the crown at Frollo's feet. Delighted, the crowd cheered. Frollo signaled to Phoebus. "Arrest her!" Esmeralda laughed. "Just try it." She tossed some powder into the air and, hidden behind a puff of smoke, took off with Dally at her heels. The soldiers followed, but she just disappeared. "What you trying to arrest her for? You the wrong one. That's supposed to be your son, so-called." Dodging and weaving her way through the crowd. "This gypsy's witchcraft must stop, Captain," Frollo said to Phoebus. "Find her and bring her to me alive." Then he glared at Quasimodo. "I'm sorry, master," said Quasimodo. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "I will never disobey you again." Atop the parapet, the gargoyles looked on sadly as their friend, his head hung in shame, trudged up the steps to the cathedral. Wow. You never treat nobody like that, no matter how bad, how they look. That afternoon, the city streets glistened in the drizzling rain. Esmeralda and Dally together discussed it as an old man slipped into a side door of Notre Dame. "Shh," she whispered to her little goat. "We'll hide here." Esmeralda gazed in wonder up at the cathedral's arched ceiling. The light from the outdoors, shining through the stained glass, added a glow of color and warmth to the gray stone. As she stood in the silence of the great cathedral, her troubles outside seemed far away. Then she heard a faint sound behind her. Phoebus suddenly emerged from the shadows. "You!" gasped Esmeralda. Phoebus nodded. "You gave us quite a chase." Esmeralda grabbed a candelabra and held it in the air. "Don't come any closer," she warned him. Phoebus smiled. "I was just coming to apologize." He bowed. "My name is Phoebus." He paused and grinned. "It means sun god." Esmeralda grinned back. Then she grew serious. "You're not arresting me." "Not as long as you're in here," said Phoebus. "You have sanctuary. You can't be arrested if you ask for the protection of the church." Esmeralda was confused. "If you're not going to arrest me, then what you want?" Phoebus said. "I settled for an introduction." Esmeralda hesitated a few seconds and gave him her name. "Esmeralda," repeated Phoebus softly. "It's a beautiful name." The sound of footsteps made them turn. Frollo, escorted by 2 soldiers, strode up to them. "Good work, Captain," he said, smiling broadly. "Now arrest the gypsy woman." "You tricked me," she said, sounding both disappointed and furious. Phoebus drew his sword and approached Esmeralda. "Claim sanctuary," he whispered to her. Frollo spoke. "I'm waiting, Captain." Phoebus turned to him. I'm sorry, sir, he reported, but the woman has claimed sanctuary. There's nothing I could do. Esmeralda trembled with relief. The soldier had saved her. Well, then drag her outside, said Frollo. You can't arrest her there. Then take her to... An angry voice interrupted him. You will not touch her. The archdeacon, I like the archdeacon, y'all. The archdeacon, his robe billowing behind him, crossed the stone floor. He mentioned with a sweeping gesture to Frollo, you must leave Notre Dame. He turned to Esmeralda. Do not be frightened. Minister Frollo learned years ago to respect the sanctity of the church. You've been granted sanctuary. As long as you remain here, you are safe. As the archdeacon ushered the soldiers out, Frollo leaned close to Esmeralda's ear. You think you've outwitted me? He hissed. But I am a patient man, and we both know gypsies don't do well inside stone walls. You've chosen a magnificent place to stay, but it's a prison nonetheless. Set one foot outside Notre Dame, and you're mine. As soon as he left, Esmeralda ran to the door with Dally at her side. She peered out. A soldier stood at every exit. Don't worry, she said to the little goat. If Frollo thinks he can keep us here, he's wrong. The archdeacon came up behind her. Don't act rashly, my child, he warned her. It would be unwise to arouse Frollo's anger any further. I thought if just one person could stand up to him then. The archdeacon smiled sadly. You can't right all the wrongs of this world by yourself. Well, one thing is for sure, said Esmeralda. No one out there is going to help. Perhaps, suggested the archdeacon. Looking toward the altar, there is someone in here who can. He left her alone in the silence of Notre Dame. Esmeralda closed her eyes and prayed. When she raised her head, she saw Quasimodo watching her. As soon as their eyes met, he ran for the door leading to the bell tower. Wait, Esmeralda called out, running after him. I'd like to talk to you. He ain't alone, y'all. Somebody care. Quasimodo charged up the steps into the bell tower. Got the girls chasing you already, Hugo teased. You mustn't run too fast, advised Victor, or she'll get away. Hugo began casting an imaginary fishing line. You gotta give her some slack, then reel her in, he said. Then give her some slack, then reel her in. Then out, he grunted as Laverne bopped him on the head. Knock it off, Hugo, she told him. She's a woman, not a mackerel. Hush, you two, warned Victor. Someone's coming. Esmeralda, with Dally at her heels, burst into the room. Here you are, she cried. She stopped to catch her breath. I was afraid I lost you. Yes, well, I have chores to do. It was nice seeing you again, mumbled Quasimodo. He started for an open door. I gotta go now. Wait, Esmeralda said. I'm really sorry about what happened this afternoon. She glanced about the room and noticed the miniature village on the table. Did you make that all by yourself? She asked, going over for a closer look. Quasimodo nodded. Esmeralda looked at the little buildings with gabled rooftops and tiny townspeople, and in the center of the city stood a perfectly carved motto of Notre Dame. This is beautiful, said Esmeralda. If I had your talent, you wouldn't find me dancing on the streets for coins. But you're a wonderful dancer, said Quasimodo. Well, it keeps bread on the table, said Esmeralda with a shrug. She spotted two little carved figures sticking out beneath the cloth. Oh no, Quasimodo protested. Please, they're not finished. They're not even painted yet. But Esmeralda was already looking at them. It's the blacksmith, she laughed, and the baker. Yes, said Quasimodo. I hope to carve all the townspeople one day. Esmeralda studied the perfect little carvings. "You're a surprising person, Quasimodo," she said. She looked around her. "And a lucky one, having this whole tower to yourself." "Well, it's not just me," Quasimodo explained. "There's the gargoyles, and of course the bells. Would you like to see them?" Esmeralda followed him. Esmeralda followed him up a narrow ladder. Dally nimbly climbed up behind her. "Look at all these bells," said Esmeralda, stepping onto a platform. "I never knew there was so many." "Each one has a name," Quasimodo told her, pointing them out. "That one is little Sophie, and these are Jeannie Marie, Anne Marie, and Louise Marie. They're triplets." Esmeralda laughed. Then she looked up into an enormous bell hanging above her head. "And who's this?" "Big Marie," answered Quasimodo. Quasimodo gently took Esmeralda by the arm and pointed out an arched window. "I saved the best for last. We can see even better from outside," said Quasimodo. "Outside?" "There's a little stairway leading to the roof," he said. "Just be careful up there." It was now sunset. All over the city, people were lighting. All over the city, people were lighting lamps in their houses as they watched the river turn from rose to dark blue. Then the stars twinkled in the black night sky. "I bet the king himself doesn't have a view like this," said Esmeralda. "I could stay up here forever." "Well, you could, Quasimodo told her. "You have sanctuary." Esmeralda shook her head. "Sanctuary, but not freedom. We gypsies don't do well inside stone walls. Even Frollo understands that." "But you aren't like other gypsies," Quasimodo said. "They're evil." "Who told you that?" asked Esmeralda. "My master Frollo," said Quasimodo proudly. "He raised me." Esmeralda was surprised. "He raised you? But he's so cruel." "Cruel? Oh no, he saved my life," explained Quasimodo. "He took me in when no one else would. I'm a monster, you know." "He told you that?" asked Esmeralda. Quasimodo nodded. Esmeralda gently took his hand. "Let me see." She studied the lines on his palm. "These lines tell a lot about people, you know." "This one means you're shy and intelligent too." "Really?" asked Quasimodo.